Hey, beautiful soul. Welcome to Spirit Speakeasy. I'm Joy Giovanni, Joyful Medium. I'm a working psychic medium, energy healer, and spiritual gifts mentor. This podcast is like a seat at the table in a secret club, but with mediums, mystics, and the spiritual luminaries of our time. So come behind the velvet ropes with me and see inside my world as I chat insider style with profoundly gifted souls. We go deep, share juicy stories, laugh a lot, and it wouldn't be a speakeasy without great insider secrets and tips. You might even learn that you have some gifts of your own. So step inside the Spirit Speakeasy. Hey, beautiful soul. Welcome to Spirit Speakeasy. I'm your host, Joy Giovanni, Joyful Medium. And today we are going to talk about 7 themes to expect in a 7-year. Some prediction on the energies and potentials of 2023, and really just what you need to know for 2023. So I'm going to tell you what the 7 themes are, and then we're going to dive in, and I'm going to talk about how they might affect you as an individual and how they might affect us all collectively. Now, how do we get to this number 7? Really, in numerology, it's simple. You just add numbers together to condense to a single number. So the number 2023, 2023, if you add those all together, you get a 7. It's that simple. One of my favorite personal tools, spiritual tools, is numerology. I use it so much in my own personal development, as well as when I'm helping clients with coaching and personal development. It really is the understanding of energy of numbers. Numerology can provide insights, information. It can help you forecast and prepare for the year ahead. If you understand the themes and dominant energies and emotions, you can ride the wave of those energies and emotions to make the most of your year. So that's my intention with this episode. Each year has its own universal year number, like we were talking about. You can think of it almost like one giant horoscope for the year from a numerology and energetic theme perspective. A universal collective year number tells you what areas of life and what themes will be important to you for the year. It also influences all of humanity. It's kind of like how in the summer we can expect warmer temperatures, and in the winter we can expect relatively colder temperatures. It's knowing based on the energy of these seasons, what can we expect as it relates to weather? Well, this is knowing the energy of the number of this year. What can we expect as far as emotions, energies, potentials? A universal year number is impactful, life-altering, and symbolizes what type of energy the collective will be fixated on for the year, either creating that energy or destroying that energy, depending on everyone's free will choice as individuals and as groups. So I'll spare you the math. But like I said, the quick version is just 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 3 equals 7. 2023 added all together is 7. And 7 energy has some specific themes of its own. So I broken them down into 7 themes you're going to want to know about for 2023. And like I said, we'll talk about all of these themes, plus how they might show up for us as individuals from, a personal standpoint, but also how it might show up in our society, in our global perspective, in our communities that we're involved in and groups that we're a part of. It's meant to be a quieter inner year, this 7-year. It's one where we can really learn the answers to our most burning questions, our deepest questions, the ones that we like to talk about and the ones that we don't like to talk about. So this is a powerful year. So for the 7 themes of 2023, here are the areas we're going to dive into. The first theme is slow and steady. The second is introspection. The third is cultivate a spiritual practice. We're going to talk all about that. The fourth is intuition. The fifth is clarity. The sixth theme is healing. And the 7th theme of 2023 is discovery, which leads to evolution, because we're preparing for the next year, which we're going to talk a little bit about that too. So let's dive into this first theme, slow and steady. Now, this year, 2023, may feel like two steps forward and one step back. The pace may feel slower, but slow and steady is the best pace for this year. So instead of rushing out to find every new opportunity that might be available to you, be patient, exercise some patience, and wait for opportunities to come to you. Wait for pieces to fall a little bit more into place instead of trying to push things together and make them happen. Trying to push through or force things to happen this year will leave us feeling frustrated and disappointed, and that's not what we want. This really is a chance to take inspired action rather than just quick action. So slow yourself down, admit that you are feeling lost or that you don't quite know the exact next steps on your path, and really the answers that you're going to get are going to lead you to where you need to be. So don't panic. Being lost sometimes is the only way for us to find our way, which is exactly where you are meant to be this year. You're right on schedule. Don't worry. Don't be alarmed about this slow and steady pace. Now, in our own lives, I kind of alluded to all the ways it could feel frustrating, but as a collective, it might be this energy of, still two steps forward, one step back with political agendas, with social justice agendas, with economic agendas. So it can really play out in so many ways, just this slow pace. It will be steady, but it's going to be much slower than we'll feel comfortable at times. Now, the second theme I want to talk about for 2023 is healing. Make space for all of the healing and personal growth and introspection that's going to be going on this year. And when I say make space, I'm talking about space from people. So making sure you have some private alone time for the introspection we're going to talk about in a minute. Making sure that you have some breaks from routine. It's not a year to just forge ahead and push with force like we were talking about. So make sure you have some space from your work, and that might mean working on more intentionally scheduling your time so that you're not working 12 hours a day and you are breaking it up. The existence of the ability for healing this year is really profound. The potential exists for healing wounds personally and collectively, deep wounds and trauma. Healing comes through understanding, listening, and slow, deliberate unpacking of our experiences, both personally and on a larger scale. And sometimes it includes contemplating the experiences and perspectives that are outside of our own. When you think of doing the inner work, that personal development, this is a year ripe with energy to support all of it. So if you're someone who avoids looking at your tough stuff or looking at personal development, now really is a year that there is so much potential for healing, but we have to choose to intentionally do that work to be available. And like I said, some of it is making space for that intentional going within, making space to allow your intuition to move through you to decide, oh, what's the best choice here of these two choices, for example. So really some profound healing can come of all this introspection and all of this slow, steady work this year. Let's talk about that introspection as the third theme to be aware of in 2023. In this introspective year, you'll be feeling like you want to seek and find the direction that feels right for you. It's not a year of just choosing any direction and forging ahead. It's really intentionally choosing what feels right for you. A more serious, contemplative side of yourself will be showing up along with a clear and possibly uncomfortable awareness that quote unquote good enough is just not good enough anymore. The status quo needs redefining. Collectively, this might show up as highlighting inequalities, biases, discrimination, but more deeply understanding how these are woven into, culture and the systemic fibers of our communities, of our locations, of the groups that we're in, and really wanting to deeply understand, not skim the surface. No matter what, you'll be made aware that, the imperfection in your life, where it is, what it is, how it feels, so that you can look deeper and evaluate your options. Surface level changes are not going to be acceptable this year, but there will be, in the shadow of this energy, a resistance. So if you're flowing with the energy, you might embrace this introspection. We collectively might embrace this need to go deep and understand so we can make powerful and impactful change. But there's the potential that there could be another side of this coin, people, groups who are in resistance to this change, to the energy of being honest, going deep, telling difficult truths. So that's also something to be aware of. Remember to stay seeking what feels in alignment for you, and look deeper and evaluate what needs to be learned in order to make it a reality. It could take an entire year to figure this out, guys. So don't assume that you already have the answers, even if you have been doing your work, your personal development, your spiritual development. Even if you've been doing your work all along, don't assume that you already know what this is going to look like for you this year. Instant gratification is not on the menu this year. So it really is going to be an introspective, slow and steady healing process. Be careful of overanalyzing, though, because that's a form of denial. Sometimes we overanalyze when we actually have the correct answer or know what the best or most aligned choice is for us, but we refuse to accept it. Like, we don't like the answer. Then we go searching for answers that we like rather than accepting the actual truth of a situation or what needs to be done or to be not done. Remember, what's true for you is not necessarily true for someone else. So sometimes our pursuit of truth or our resistance to truth creates a necessary discomfort or even a boiling point right before a big shift in awareness is about to happen. This year definitely has the potential to free ourselves, both individually and collectively, from outdated beliefs and things that don't work anymore, that don't fit anymore, that are an old way, an old paradigm. And this can happen, like I said, both in an individual way in our own lives by, like we were talking about, things being highlighted that are not a fit anymore, or areas where there's dysfunction or where it's not just not good enough anymore to be accepting certain behavior, for example. But collectively, we really have this potential this year to talk about difficult conversations and move towards understanding, which sets us up for real change going forward. And it'll be interesting to see where there's this collective energy of being willing to be introspective, being willing to be honest about our truths, being willing to witness the truth from someone else's perspective, even if it's not our own experience. And it'll be interesting to see the resistance to that. Now, one of the other themes that's really important this year is this theme around cultivating a spiritual practice, a personal spiritual practice. No matter how spiritually advanced you think you are, the reflective power of a 7-year will really highlight and expose areas where you feel disconnected or alone, even if that's something you're hiding from yourself. And collectively, it may be highlighted to us additional groups, or to a degree which groups are being alienated, are feeling disconnected, are being pushed to the outside. It's a perfect time to create or fine-tune your own personal spiritual practice. And whether yours includes meditation, prayer, music, ritual, or other forms of going within to connect with yourself and with the divine, great spirit, God, whatever you like to name that, it's this practice that will support your relationship with your intuition, which is another big theme for this year that we're going to talk about next. Evaluating your core personal spiritual beliefs, what resonates with who you are now, and what ideas you choose to carry forward are all a part of this theme. So there might be beliefs that you previously held that as you've evolved and understood things to a new degree these last few years, maybe you don't believe the same way. Maybe some of the mantras that you used to have don't resonate with you anymore. Now is the year to evaluate that through your own personal spiritual practice. Evaluating these core beliefs are really going to lead you to a deeper understanding of who you are, what you need, and what is the best direction for you. And it will really open up that intuition, like we were talking about. The next layer of this, then, after you evaluate these beliefs, is to then look at how that spiritual belief moves you in the world. So it's one thing to believe that we need to be helping our fellow human, it's another thing to actually be taking action and doing that philanthropic work or charity work or giving, sharing work in the world, and taking a look at, these beliefs that you do hold, that you do have and want to carry forward. How are you allowing these spiritual beliefs to move you in the world? Where are you giving or supporting or caring for your world family siblings? This has the potential to manifest in the world as attempts to, on one side of the spectrum, impose rigid rules, beliefs, systems over the rights of others. But it also, on the other side of that spectrum, has the potential to show up as people bonding and banding together based on common core beliefs around the rights of others and around our responsibilities to speak up for our fellow world family siblings, especially as we move towards 2024, which is an 8-year. So as this year progresses, you might see the tension or the expansion of these themes really showing up. Now, I want to step into this part where we're going to talk about intuition, because like I was saying, through this cultivating your spiritual practice, your intuition in turn is going to strengthen, your discernment is going to strengthen. You're going to be able to, if you really take advantage of this energy and fine tune or create, depending where you're at right now, this spiritual practice, it really will help you understand what's your intuition versus what's your nervous chatter. Choices and decisions are really important in a 7-year, and taking time to not make snap decisions is also important, which is one of the ways you can use your intuition. Rather than making snap decisions, you can allow yourself to be intuitively guided. Now, in the shadow of this energy of a 7-year, there's a tendency for people to trip and fall if they're moving too fast. So let your intuition nudge you, help you to determine the pace that you're moving at this year. And that could even look like physical falls for some people. But for other people, it might show up as more of a fall from power or a fall from grace. So really, there might be big impacts this year from hasty choices or from choices made from a place of not considering ourselves, our own needs, our own path, our beliefs, like what you know to be true deep within you, your intuition, etc. And the 7 is the number of choice. So it can lead to things like scandals and secrets and conspiracies and paranoia. And if someone is being oppressive to someone else or to others, like to a group of people, if a leader is being oppressive to a group of people, for example, that's when this fall from grace is really very possible this year. And through your own spiritual practice, you'll continue to deepen this discernment, like we were talking about, this ability to understand your intuition, which is a big part of the energy available to all of us this year. So if you're someone who has felt like you haven't had a clear understanding of what's your intuitive voice versus what's your own anxiety or your own nervousness, really following what we're talking about and developing that spiritual practice, doing that introspection is going to set you up, because there's this energy of potential to strengthen, to build, to fortify this relationship with your intuition. Now's the year to focus on it. If you need an excuse, this is it. And through that spiritual practice, it really helps you, like I said, discern, fine tune your understanding of what your own emotions are, even, which is a really big part of what's available this year. We need to have access to our intuition now more than ever, especially if you're someone who finds yourself often second guessing your intuition. It's time to pay attention and put in the time on that meditation cushion this year. You will thank me later. You can have huge growth, huge leveling up in your own ability to sense and understand this year. And that brings me to our next theme, clarity. So not only can you have this intuition, but this intuition can then unfold through that introspection into clarity. The energy of a seven year, like we were talking about, will expose to you the aspects and areas of your life where you have become dissatisfied. So really, it's allowing you and setting you up to realize where you are dissatisfied so that you can see just how much more satisfying your life could be, and you can live into what you're wanting to create if you're willing to make changes that need to be made to create that version of your life. And versions of this will show up in your personal life, maybe at work, maybe in your relationships, maybe in your finances. It can be any area at all where you'll start just being a little more aware of the parts you're dissatisfied with. And it can happen as well collectively. So allow the time you take with your spiritual practice and your intuition to help you understand what's not working anymore. Remember, take your time, no snap decisions. And some of this you might already know. So some of these things, for example, it might not be a total shock to you to have clarity around the areas that you're dissatisfied. You already might know that you're dissatisfied with that job, or that, this relationship's just not healthy anymore, or this habit is, it's time to let go of. But this year is going to help you get the clarity you need to move forward. So if issues come up for you as the months progress and we move through this year, look for deeper solutions. Don't just follow your old patterns or resist considering other perspectives. It's time to ask questions, to probe deeper. What underlying pattern do you see? When you have experienced something before, is there a time you can remember experiencing a similar feeling or a similar situation in the past to what's being highlighted for you right now as needing change? And maybe it's just that some of your own patterns are going to be highlighted for you, but digging deeper at what are the root causes of the situation that you're in now? What are the root causes of this pattern that's just the way you do it, that's not working for you anymore? All of this clarity, your inner searching, your introspection, your inner seeking, this meditative practice or spiritual practice, all of the clarity that this brings you through all of this questioning and introspective is really great fertilizer for all of the seeds of personal growth that you're planting and nurturing in this 7-year. It's a perfect year to break out of old patterns, old habits, old mindsets that just no longer serve who we are and where we intend to go, both personally and also in our communities. This number is highly analytical. It activates the mind. So, it's not that hard to connect the dots this year and make sense of what's working, what's not working, get that clarity, and make the most of this energy to get as much clarity in the areas of your life as you possibly can. It's good to know that you cannot expect others to know what you're thinking or feeling as you get this new clarity. Don't expect them to understand what you're experiencing or to understand your moods or the perspective shifts that you're having. We may perceive each other to be difficult to approach this year or hard to understand. No one can read your mind and no one can feel your feelings, and it's impossible to walk a mile in someone else's shoes. So, clear communication is so important, and so is listening to hear and understand rather than listening to respond or to refute, to argue back. Really having the attitude that deep understanding is important this year across the board. Instead of taking your relationships for granted, for example, seek to understand the other person, whether that's a life partner or an employee or a student or any other relationship. And collectively, this might include our relationships to government, to technology, or even with company hierarchies, for example. This can show up in so many different ways, but one of the best ways to really use this energy available to us around clarity is to listen for understanding and don't assume that you understand someone else's experience, and you have to believe what they're telling you, even if it's not your personal experience, because you don't know how someone else is feeling, nor do they know how you're feeling, your experiences, or where you're coming from. There can be a lot of power in this type of clarity. So I just want to invite you to really think about, as you move through this year, clearly communicating your intentions and really being available to listen, to hear, and understand. Another point about clarity, these last few years have been a lot for all of us in all the ways. We have a collective opportunity to come to terms with ourselves as, a whole, and to develop a better understanding of the ways that we've evolved as communities, as societies, as groups, even as states and countries, and to become more aware of the ways that we still haven't evolved enough. And like it or not, these collective relationships, cultural and societal agreements, and patterns of behavior, they affect us all in very deep and real ways. So I just invite you to explore that within yourself, within your own communities, and within your own city, state, country, even your own neighborhood and the groups that you belong to. How can you come to terms more and understand more deeply how you've evolved in these groups and how these groups have evolved, and in the ways that which more evolution needs to happen, more change needs to happen, more growth needs to happen, more conversation needs to happen for clarity and understanding. And that brings us to my seventh and final theme of 2023, discovery, which leads to evolution. Really, this 7 year is to help us prepare for the 8 year, right? Because in numerology, it follows a cycle, and after 7, when you're counting, comes 8. So next year is going to be an 8 year, which is a power year, a year of action. So it's why it's so important that we have all these deep discoveries this year, that we do take our time, move slow and steady, really marinating in the emotions, the understanding, really going deeper, possibly than ever before, allowing ourselves time and space for introspection, but also to uncover more about ourselves as individuals and as groups, communities, collectives, to create time to allow that slower pace for healing, for the creation or fine tuning of your spiritual practice. And through doing that, you can have access to depths of your intuition and understanding in new and amazing ways that will lead you then to the clarity that you need to process, to plan, and to more intentionally choose what you want to do and create going forward, how you want to show up in the world, what resonates with you, and what you've outgrown. And all of it's okay, because these discoveries that will be a huge theme of this year, personal discoveries, collective discoveries, truths being told and possibly heard and understood for the first time in the ways and to the depths and levels they can be. All of this discovery will lead us to evolution, personal evolution, collective evolution. And I don't mean evolution like tails falling off of creatures. I mean evolution like stepping into our power in ways of advocacy, in ways of philanthropy, in ways of collaboration, in ways of understanding the needs of ourselves and others so we can make real impactful, lasting change in our lives, in our communities, in our societies, in our families, in our world, which is what we really ultimately need. So all of this is not for nothing, and the slow pace is totally worth it because it allows us to have more introspection, more intuition, more clarity. I highly recommend you consider your spiritual practice. Like we were talking about, go a little deeper within. Help yourself sit with wanting to understand why you believe what you do and why you feel the way you do and what resonates with you now, who you are today, not 5 years ago you, or maybe even not 3 years ago you, and what you're wanting to live into and grow into, who you're still trying to become. Because no matter our age, we still are in a process of evolution, of growth, of understanding ourselves, of relating to others differently. So this really is an important year for personal growth, for spiritual growth, for the growth of our communities, for cultivating a spiritual practice that's going to hone us into our intuition so that going forward, we can have more clarity and more deep understanding and more intuitive knowledge as we go forward. So really all this discovery is not for nothing. It's setting us up for the 8-year where we have just the collective energetic force to propel things forward at a much quicker pace. So I'm sure you're right where you need to be. Don't be alarmed if things are going slowly. I would love to hear how these themes show up for you this year, how they might already be showing up for you right at the beginning of the year, whether it's in your own personal life, the life, your family life, your work life, and a greater scale in the groups that you're in, the communities you belong to, or collectively wherever you live. So let me know. I really am excited for this year. I think the pace change is going to be helpful for all of us. And I can't encourage you enough to really cultivate or fine tune that spiritual practice. It's going to be so important. And like I said, you'll thank me later. If you're someone who's just getting started in your spiritual practice, check out my website, joyfulmedium.com. Right on the homepage, I have a free 3-day signs mini course. It's called Sign Magnet. And it's going to teach you how to start seeing, experiencing numbers all around you. And it gives you a cheat sheet to tell you what those numbers are trying to tell you, what they mean. So as you're getting a little quieter within yourself, and as you're fine-tuning this intuition, you can start playing with signs through numbers, signs with the universe, and even learning how to get signs from your loved ones in the spirit world who have crossed over. And as you're moving into this spiritual practice and really honing your intuition, it's fun to play with these tools. It's totally free, just a great resource for you guys. So check that out, joyfulmedium.com. And if you are enjoying this podcast, I hope that you will like, subscribe, share, maybe tag a friend who needs this information, who would want a heads up on the 7 themes of 2023 that we need to be aware of, both in our own lives and in the world around us. It's really helpful to know. So thanks for being here with me in the Speakeasy. I'm looking forward to all of the great episodes I have coming for you this year. So many things you won't want to miss, insider secrets, tips, tools from mediums, mystics, and the spiritual luminaries of our time. Never a dull moment inside the Speakeasy. Thanks for being here with me today. Big hugs. Bye for now.